London, 1666. A city of wooden houses, narrow alleys, and restless whispers. At dawn, a single spark lit the darkness, and by nightfall, an empire was burning. The Great Fire of London consumed everything: churches, homes, marketplaces, 1,000 lives reduced to ash. But was it really an accident? They said it began in a baker's shop on Pudding Lane, a careless flame that leapt onto dry timber. Yet witnesses claimed they saw men in the shadows, strangers throwing oil into the fire, guards ordered to let it burn. And as the flames raged, powerful men met in secret rooms. Some said it was divine punishment. Others whispered of profit and power, that the fire was no tragedy, but a cleansing, a plan to rebuild the city and erase its poorest souls. When the smoke cleared, the old London was gone, and in its place rose a city of stone, money, and secrets. The question history never answered still burns through the centuries: was the Great Fire of London a tragic accident, or the perfect crime hidden in plain sight? It was a warm September night in 1666. London slept under a restless sky, its narrow streets choked with wooden houses and the smell of smoke from the bakeries along Pudding Lane. Inside one of those bakeries, a man named Thomas Farriner, royal baker to King Charles II, finished his day's work. He doused the ovens, sealed the doors, and left for the night. But deep within the coals, one ember still lit. By midnight, that tiny ember had leapt to a pile of firewood. Within minutes, flames raced up the timbered walls, exploding through the rooftops. Neighbors shouted, buckets of water were thrown, but the wind had already turned the fire into a monster. Within an hour, Pudding Lane was a tunnel of flame. Sparks danced through the air, carried by wind from the Thames, landing on rooftops half a mile away. Londoners ran with their children, their faces lit by the glow of their burning homes. Bells rang, but few came to help. Even the city's trained watchmen froze in terror. And as the fire spread, one question began to echo in the smoke-filled night: why did no one stop it? Some said orders came from above, to let it burn. Others whispered that this was no accident at all, but the first move in a plan that would change the city forever. By dawn, the heart of London was unrecognizable. The fire that began on Pudding Lane had become a storm of flame, roaring louder than church bells, swallowing everything it touched. Sparks leapt across the River Thames, setting warehouses and ships ablaze. Barrels of oil exploded like thunder. Roofs collapsed, streets twisted with heat, and the air itself shimmered red. The king's messengers galloped through the chaos, shouting for order, but there was none. The city watch had no plan. Their fire engines were broken, their buckets too few. People tore down their own homes, desperate to stop the flames from spreading, but the fire had a will of its own. In Cheapside, merchants wept as their life's fortunes melted into molten gold. At St. Paul's Cathedral, centuries of history burned in a single night: books, paintings, relics, all reduced to cinders. And in the streets, panic turned to fury. Whispers spread that the fire was no accident, that foreigners or spies had lit it on purpose. Mobs hunted strangers through the ruins, while powerful men in fine coats watched from safety, their eyes calm, almost calculating. When the city burns, truth burns with it. And as London turned to ash, one chilling fact began to surface: that some fires destroy cities, and some are set to rebuild them. The fire raged for 4 days. When the smoke finally lifted, London was gone: more than 13,000 houses, 87 churches, and 400 streets reduced to ash. But what came next was darker than the fire itself: the hunt for someone to blame. Fear ruled the ruins. People whispered of foreign saboteurs, secret plots, and divine punishment. The city was full of survivors looking for answers, and anyone who looked different became a suspect. Foreign merchants were dragged through the streets. Catholics were accused of starting the fire to destroy Protestant London. And then came one name, a poor Frenchman, Robert Hubert. He confessed that he'd thrown a fireball into the bakery on Pudding Lane. The city cheered. A criminal had been found, but there was one problem: Hubert hadn't even arrived in England until 2 days after the fire began. Still, the people needed a villain. The courts ignored the truth. And on the 27th of October, 1666, Robert Hubert was hanged at Tyburn, his body left swinging as the crowd chanted, "Justice for London." But justice was never served, only silence, and behind that silence, powerful voices moved quietly, rewriting the story before it was ever told, because sometimes, history doesn't record the truth, it records the version the victors need. Out of the ashes rose an opportunity, not just to rebuild London, but to reshape it. The king's advisors gathered in secret rooms, poring over maps of the destroyed city. Streets could be widened. Houses rebuilt in stone instead of timber. A new London, grander, richer, easier to control, but not everyone was invited to the table. The poor, those who had lost everything, were pushed aside, their land quietly claimed by the wealthy. Titles changed hands. New rules favored those close to the crown, and at the center of it all stood one man, Sir Christopher Wren. A visionary architect, yes, but also a man perfectly placed to benefit from disaster. His designs would redefine London's skyline, especially St. Paul's Cathedral, which would rise again as a symbol of rebirth and royal power. Yet whispers began to grow that the fire had been too perfect, clearing precisely the areas needed for expansion, that merchants with debts suddenly had their records burned away, that certain nobles grew richer while others vanished. Was it a coincidence? Or was the Great Fire not merely a tragedy, but a carefully planned reset? The ashes of London hid many secrets, and beneath the new marble streets, the truth remained buried. Behind every disaster in history, there's a question few dare to ask: who truly benefited? As London smoldered, King Charles II appeared before the people, calm, compassionate, promising to rebuild. He was hailed as the city's savior, but in the quiet halls of Whitehall Palace, rumors told another story. Before the fire, the king's finances were collapsing. England was drowning in debt from the Dutch wars. The crown owed money it could never repay, and suddenly, as if by miracle, the fire erased thousands of debts, burning away tax records, destroying the evidence of unpaid loans. The city's chaos gave the king a chance to seize control, rebuilding on his own terms, centralizing power, and silencing critics who had accused him of weakness. Even the rebuilding projects, the contracts, the land, flowed through royal hands. Those loyal to the crown prospered. Those who opposed it vanished from the new city plan, and yet, in his private letters, Charles wrote something chilling: "The fire has done me more good than harm." Was it gratitude? Or confession? No one can say. But when a kingdom burns and the king smiles, the line between tragedy and intention begins to blur, because sometimes, the crown doesn't just survive the flames, it lights them. In every great tragedy, there are voices that vanish, not by chance, but by design. When the flames died, London was full of whispers. People who claimed they'd seen men running through the streets before the fire started. Others spoke of guards ordered to stand down. And a few, too few, said they'd heard explosions beneath the bakery on Pudding Lane. One man, a night watchman named Thomas Farriner, swore he'd seen strange figures near his shop hours before the blaze. Days later, he disappeared. Another, a clerk from the city records office, said he'd found royal marks on burnt property maps, symbols that didn't belong. His home mysteriously collapsed that same night. The official inquiry dismissed it all as hysteria. Rumors of frightened minds, they called it. But documents went missing. Witnesses were silenced. And a list of names, found half-burned near the Guildhall, vanished into royal archives, never to be seen again. It was as if someone wanted the truth to stay buried in the ashes, and it worked. History remembered the Great Fire as an accident, a baker's mistake. But those who dared to look closer saw the pattern: silence, fear, disappearance, because when truth threatens power, it doesn't burn, it's erased. When the smoke cleared and London began to rebuild, a new city rose, clean, organized, and under control. The fire that had begun in a humble bakery had transformed the entire empire. Streets were straighter, buildings stronger, The poor scattered to the outskirts, and those who ruled more tightly than ever before. History called it progress, but was it really rebirth, or the perfect cover-up? Decades later, letters surfaced, quiet whispers from royal archives, written by men close to the throne. They spoke of a necessary cleansing. A purge by flame to rid London of disease, debt, and dissent. Even Christopher Wren's notes contain strange hints that the city's redesign was prepared months before the fire. Was the Great Fire of London an accident of fate, or a deliberate act of power disguised as tragedy? No confession was ever made. No document ever confirmed it. But sometimes, truth doesn't need proof, it leaves patterns, and in London, that pattern is still visible today. Every brick of the rebuilt city, every road and cathedral, whispers the same question: who really lit the match? Because the greatest secrets in history aren't the ones forgotten, they're the ones rebuilt to look innocent.